All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started here. This is our first webinar version of what has been our in-person workshop series. So we're hoping this will offer an even more convenient way for people to attend. We are recording this webinar, and a link will be emailed after the event to everybody that has already registered. So please use the chat box to the right to ask any questions you may have along the way, and we'll collect those and answer those at the end of the presentation. So today we have Craig Eaton, broker and owner of Eaton Realty. He has more than 40 years in sales and real estate experience and is our go-to person to answer all the tough real estate questions that come along. So welcome to you, Craig.
Thank you.
We also have Rebecca Kelly, our director of sales, and she's built an incredible reputation all around Tampa Bay. She's an integral part of the leadership team here at Eaton Realty. So welcome to you, Becky.
Oh, good to be here.
All right, and with that, I'll hand it over to Becky to get us started on our home selling 101 journey.
Awesome. Well, folks, as Sean said, you're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to talk about home selling 101. And honestly, for the next 30 minutes, you're getting a whole lot of free guidance, so I encourage you to use that chat box so that we answer the questions that you have. On the screen in front of you, you've got the path to home selling, and it sure looks like there's a lot of activities on there. But I don't want you to stress or get overwhelmed. We've actually got the whole process broken down into 3 simple steps. We're going to prepare the home, we're going to market the home, and then we're going to close the home. Sounds simple enough? All right, let's jump right in. Here are the details. First thing we need to determine is your motivation for selling. Hashtag moving sucks. So if you do gotta go, there better be a compelling reason sending you out the door. For example, maybe you just found out you've got triplets. You're gonna need a whole lot more bedrooms. That's a growing family. Or in my instance, we were military, and so we had to PCS. And so every couple of years, the government said, hey, it's time to leave that home you just got attached to. Also, I've got kids that are almost grown and flown. As they leave for college, maybe I don't want to clean 4 toilets for the rest of my life. Craig, what would make you move?
Well, obviously, most people know I'm older, so I'm an empty nester, so my kids are gone. And that big house that I have may not suit me anymore. Or I may have that dream of buying a condo on the beach.
Oh, that sounds really nice. Each of these motivators is actually going to influence your marketing plan. All right, we're moving on. The next thing for you to do is to choose the right agent. Because if you choose the wrong agent, you will know it and you will feel it. Have you seen that McDonald's commercial? I think it's McDonald's, where they have the $1 mover. So the guy's standing in his front room and he's got like 300 boxes around him, and the movers come in and they pick up the plant and they walk out. And the guy's left scratching his head like, what just happened? Well, you hired and contracted the $1 mover. You get what you pay for. So imagine what the $1 realtor might look like. I played this in my head a couple of times. She runs up to the front door and she takes out a little Post-it note and she sticks it on the door and she writes real small, for sale, and then she disappears. Well, there's your $1 realtor. You get what you pay for. Craig, would it be nice if you and I could just fist bump and say, woohoo, we're going into business together? Yeah, no, we're going to need a listing agreement. This is a legal document that spells out the broker's responsibilities, you, the seller's responsibilities, and how everybody gets paid. Please don't overlook this important thing. A handshake's great, fist bump's nice with your friend, but you really do need a listing agreement to chart the course. What are some of the dangers of being a maverick and trying to do it on your own?
Well, a lot of people think they can, and in the old days it wasn't that difficult. But again, the litigious community that we live in, it makes it much more difficult today. And that's why there's pages and pages of disclosures, and these listing agreements continue to grow. It's back to the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I've been in this business actually doing real estate and sales for over 40 years, and I learn things every day. So it's important that you find people that you can partner with, realtors that truly know the area, they know their craft, and can keep you out of danger. And because mistakes in this business, when you're dealing with the largest, most valuable commodity you've ever owned, they can be expensive.
But my brother's a realtor. Why shouldn't I use him?
Well, they say, their saying goes, if you were accused of murder, you wouldn't pick your brother's sister's uncle to keep you out of prison. They have. I remember the story they said about what do you call a medical student that graduated last in his class? Doctor. Well, that doesn't mean that's the one I wanted just because he's got a license.
Good point. I don't know. If I was going to have a mole removed, I don't think I want to do it myself. I think I'm going to go to the dermatologist who's been trained to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely consider that. So as we're moving along, we're going to have to prepare the home for sale. Who can tell me the number one thing a seller controls with respect to preparation?
I don't know. You got me.
It's condition.
Oh, yeah.
Seller controls the condition of the home. Not me, the realtor, the seller. And honestly, what buyers are looking for is the HGTV dream home. They want to walk in and see that Wayfair and Josh and Maine threw up in your living room. But unfortunately, that costs a lot of money, and not all of us have $30,000 to make our home look like something on the HGTV network. So what can you do? Craig, what gives you the most bang for buck as far as renovations?
Well, the big bangs for the buck is people come in and they'll evaluate your kitchen and bathrooms because they actually date the house according to those two rooms. But there's a lot of little projects that a good realtor can point out to help you navigate updating a house and eliminating objections down the road.
Yeah, sure. And, renovating a kitchen or bathroom can run you, $15,000, $20,000. And if you don't have the time to do it, because you got to be out in 30 days, says the military, and you don't have the money to do it because, you just haven't saved it up, I'll tell you, there's a couple things that you can do to get the house ready to actually enhance the perceived value of the home in the buyer's eyes. So if you want to jot this down, this is free advice. I encourage you to jot it down now. Refresh your paint. Update your carpet and flooring, spruce up your curb appeal, and give that house, hire a professional, the most thorough cleaning you have ever given it. Make sure you write that down. That alone will enhance the perceived value on a shoestring.
Remember, buyers add zeros. So if they walk in that house and it needs new carpet and paint, they're going to say, boy, this house is going to take a lot of work. It's going to take $10,000. When in reality, you probably, with a little bit of help from a realtor and those good subcontractors, could have got it done for $5,000.
Good point. Are there any other objections that the seller could minimize?
Oh, obviously, clutter's the biggest thing we run into. Is just get away from all those little objects that you got laying around. If you go into a kitchen and every inch of the countertop is covered, then they'll assume that there's not much countertop. If you clean that all off, put a couple plants, a little vase there with some cooking utensils or something, then that's fine. They can picture themselves in this kitchen. Obviously, odors are a big thing. If you happen to have pets and so forth, try to make sure your carpets are vacuumed and shampooed and try to mitigate that as much as possible. Some very cheap things is just light. Make sure if you're having a showing that you open up all the blinds and drapes so that you let as much light into the room. And then take a look at your furniture. Many times people have got big furniture or they've just kept throwing another piece in there because they ended up getting it. You may want to rent a storage shed and get rid of 30% of that furniture, which will make the rooms look much larger and open.
Oof, well, he said a lot. I don't know if you caught all of that, but I got a plan. Craig, what can they do to remember all that stuff you told them?
Well, one of the things we've got is a brochure called Preparing Your Home for Sale, and everybody that's registered here is going to get a free copy. But it's available to anybody that would like. So if you haven't registered for this or you're watching this later on from a taping, just send us an email for your free copy to info@eatonrealty.com, and we'll be happy to get it out to you.
Awesome. Well, the last piece of the puzzle in step one is setting the price. Okay, who controls the list price of the home? Yeah, if you said seller, you are right. The seller controls the list price of the home. But guess what? The market controls the sold price. So here is where setting the price from the outset is super important, and you're going to want an expert person to help you with that home valuation. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, I can just look on Zillow. Zillow's going to tell me what my house is worth, and that's where I'm going to set my price. Well, okay, good for you. But did Zillow come in and see your brand new quartz in your fancy bath renovation? Did Zillow come in and see that you replaced all the carpet above and beyond what the neighbors have? Did Zillow see all the pavers that you put in the backyard? Probably not. Zillow is, or a web estimate, is just that. It's an algorithm of data. It's not subjective. It didn't come into your home and actually compare it against what else is on the market. And that is what a professional can do.
Probably 20 years ago, people used to go to agencies and ask them what homes they had for sale, because everybody was unique and there was no ways to know every agency's homes. Then they came out with books, and that worked okay, but by the time they printed them, other houses had sold, so they became obsolete. The internet has changed this altogether. Now, with the internet, people stay up till midnight in their slippers or in bed, and they're analyzing houses upside down, left and right, from every platform they've got. Many times they know more about the houses than we do as far as value. So if it's not valued correctly, they don't look at it. They don't ask to see it. And if you look at this chart here, market value, you've got about 60% of the buyers will be looking at it. You can see you put it under market, we get bidding wars and people will actually buy it for more than we asked. But if you price it too high, you can see very quickly, just 10% more, you wiped out 30% of the market. And you go up 15% and you're talking about almost nobody. They'll look at your house, and with the internet, they have the opportunity to evaluate your house against everybody else's. And in their mind, they'll say, no, that's just too expensive. And here's the sad part. Even if you drop the price later, rarely do those people come back. Because I kind of like call it a horde of buyers out there. They've been looking for the last month or two. They have a checkbook, and they're ready to drop a check as soon as they find the right house. But they're looking at all the homes that hit the market right away. And in the first couple of weeks, you'll have your most showings. And these people will evaluate you. But I guarantee you, if you're priced too high, they will evaluate you, but they'll do it on the internet, not when you not come to see the house.
Good point. So today's buyers are super savvy, and you're not going to fool them by overpricing your home.
Somebody said that they had their house priced high, and they still got a couple showings. But I'll tell you the sad part about that, agents were probably showing that house to make their house look a lot better.
All right, so we have determined your motivation, prepped your home, priced it right. We're moving on to step 2, and that is all about exposure. Here is where a professional brokerage really does shine. If you think about it, where did you find your last home?
Well, obviously, most people today, as I mentioned, will find it on the internet. It's so simple to pull up all these different platforms and compare one to the other and see every house on the market. And then using the search engines, they can sort it down to a very short list. As our chart shows, about 28% of the people will find it through their agents. Signage is 7%, friends, relatives, so forth and so on. Ironically, one of the strongest things that was back 20, 30 years ago was the newspaper, and it's almost non-existent today in marketing.
Wow. So what you're saying is the first time a buyer might engage with your home is on the internet. So presentation is going to be key.
Absolutely.
So if a picture elicits emotions sell
Houses.
That's impressive. So the picture, professional photos are what the buyer's going to respond to, which is going to bring them in the door. In fact, professional photos can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Craig, what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at actual pictures from agents that posted pictures online for a variety of homes from Zillow and other platforms versus good pictures. And, let's be honest. If this is the first time you looked at this house and you have hundreds of homes to look at, how long would you be picking these houses on the top row to say, these are the ones I want to see? I love that bathroom with the guy taking a picture in the mirror. And the open toilet lid? Oh, come on. Give
Oh,
me
how
a
about the
break.
blown out windows?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we do, as you can see below, good realtors will do HDR, which basically allows not only the light to be proper in the room, but you can see through the windows and actually see some outdoors. So you get that wow factor. And what is it, the views that I'm seeing and enjoying when I come into this particular home?
Absolutely. Pictures elicit emotion, and emotion sells houses.
Actually, I'm going to tell you about the secret to selling homes. And if you didn't listen to anything, listen to this. We talked about all this marketing and the pricing and everything is important, and people make that determination to come see your house. Today, there's a better chance of them buying your house if they come to look at it than there's ever been before, because they know so much about the house. So those things are all critical, and they get you in the house. But the way people make their decision to purchase the house is emotion, which we mentioned. And if we can't get them in the house because it's not priced right or the curb appeal sucks, frankly, we're not going to sell them that house. And they don't buy. They figure out one house over the other. They don't buy because of objections. And if we can eliminate those objections, then they'll naturally be ready to purchase.
Well, how do we reach those buyers?
Well, that's the main thing that professional real estate companies are good at. They have mastered the art of marketing. And marketing, I call it my marketing net. And it has to be pretty big and pretty broad, and it's got several rings to it. We find and solicit and talk to buyers from all over the world. A lot of people from the UK and Canada buy homes in Florida. So realtors have websites, and they're, of course, internationally, so you can find information. But there's obviously a couple different ways. That's a digital format. There's print, newspapers, some of the traditional ways, and certainly face-to-face with your friends that you know and other realtors.
So what you're saying is, if I live on the end of a cul-de-sac deep in the heart of the suburbs and I just stick a little for sale sign in my front yard, I'm not necessarily casting the widest net possible to find a buyer.
No, and it actually will cost you time and money, because the fewer the buyers, the fewer the people that can evaluate and see your home, the less people would come to look at it, and the less people that would make you an offer, and probably the offers you get are going to be lower.
Perfect. Now that my home is out there and everybody can see it, people are actually going to want to come inside my home. So I need to get ready to prepare for buyers in the home. And y'all are probably thinking, oh, I don't know, I don't want people traipsing through my house. It's so stressful. But actually, with all the preparations that you just made to make your house the cleanest and in the best repair and priced right, you should be extremely proud to show off this home. And it's going to show when people walk in. Couple of quick tips. Put away your valuables and your medicine. Clean up your clutter and dishes. Turn on the lights. Let that natural light in, and secure and remove your pets. Who do you think controls the access to the home? It's not the realtor.
It's not the buyer.
Nope, it's you, the seller. So the greater the access you allow, the more buyers that come through. So does the listing agent need to be present? Are you home and following the buyer around? Do you have a lockbox on it? Can we get in after 6 p.m. when people are done from work? Think about the access. The greater the access, the more people come through your home. Speaking of people coming through your home, what are your thoughts on open houses, Craig?
Well, we actually like open houses. I believe that, your neighbor may come over to see how you decorated, and you get some of that. But guess what? They know people. And a lot of times neighbors can be very valuable because they'll want to pick their neighbors. And so if they know somebody, they might be more inclined to talk to somebody they know about buying a house because they want them to live close to them. But in general, you're just another form of marketing. And the more it's out there, the more the people can see it, the more opportunities. Let's be honest, if I knew the exact way every buyer came, that's all I would be marketing for. But we don't. We have to have that wide net that we talked about earlier. And open houses definitely play some part in that.
Sure. And open houses and home showings are a great way to elicit feedback from the prospective buyers. And that feedback is extremely important as we make adjustments along the way. For example, a buyer comes in and says the house is too small. Well, I can't make the home any bigger. The buyer says the yard's too big. Well, I can't make the yard any smaller. But if they're commenting on a particular paint color, an odor, or lack of lighting, etc., that's feedback that I can use to then adjust for future showings, or go back to that buyer and say, if I was able to mitigate X, then would you buy? this property. So feedback, although you might think it is criticism coming from the buyers about your home, they're really just giving you feedback on why they didn't select your home as the one for them. So realtors will evaluate that and advise you on what to do next.
Realtors also, as far as feedback, will be a good sounding board to get this information. If you were trying to show it on your own, people just say, no, it's just not for me. They tendency not to tell you what's wrong with your home because they don't want to disappoint you.
Yeah, good point. Well, now that I'm showing and I got all these people coming through, I'm bound to get offers, and well, each offer looks a little different. So I got to figure out what to do with them. Craig, what's a major difference between the as-is agreement and a standard?
Well, make sure you understand most of the agreements we see today are as-is agreements. And sellers get excited about that because they assume, well, then I've made this decision to sell it for X price and the buyers agreed to that price and I'm not going to have to mess around with it. The reality is, more times than not, that's not true. An as-is agreement simply gives the buyer the opportunity to inspect the house and in their sole discretion within a specified time period, typically 10 to 15 days, let you know if they want to continue on with the contract and that the house meets their criteria. The seller has given them a seller's disclosure that says, no, my roof's good, plumbing's good, electric's good, so forth, and the buyer made their decision based on that. But sometimes what we find is that the roof does have a leak, and you didn't know that because it just was leaking out the eaves and rotting off the edges of the trusses. Well, the buyer does have a right to then come back and ask you what you want you to negotiate that. And that's part of negotiations that we talked about, is starting to negotiate all over again.
Sure. So the standard contract kind of eliminates those looky-loos and kind of ties them a little stronger to committing to those, if I fix this, you will stay in the contract.
Right. So the takeaway is just an as-is agreement doesn't mean you're not going to have to spend some money repairing your house.
Okay. But it doesn't obligate the seller to do so.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, good point. Seller net sheet simply is what a seller net sheet sounds like. I'm going to take all the money that's coming in from the home and I'm going to subtract out all the expenses and I'm going to tell you what your proceeds are going to be based on the offer that was presented. And I'm pretty sure you're eager to hear, what are my proceeds going to be? Contract contingencies, there's three primary in both the as-is agreement and the standard contract. You're going to have an inspection contingency that the buyer has a right to inspect the home and, depending on the contract, may or may not be able to walk away. The appraisal contingency, the lender's going to say it needs to meet value. And a finance contingency. The buyer actually has a certain period of time with which to get full loan approval. There's a couple extra smaller ones we see most often in our market. Maybe they've got to sell a home first, or maybe they want to pre or post-occupy the property. Craig, what are some of the things that typically convey with a sale?
Well, this gets to be a delicate area, and one of my cardinal rules is, when in doubt, spell it out. Because if you've got a lamp fixture it's a Tiffany light that you spent a lot of money for and you want to take that with you, you need to spell that out, that's not included in the sale. A real simple idea is just take the house, turn it upside down and shake it. If it falls out, you can take it with you. If it's still in the house, it's bolted to the wall, then it's called a fixture and it stays.
There's some gray area there. What do I do with the TV?
Well, TVs have been a challenge because we've changed from freestanding televisions to wall mount. And so a TV that's hung on the wall, like your paintings and everything else, can be unhung from the wall and taken with you. However, the mount is bolted to the wall. So TV mounts under standard contracts stay unless you spell it out. Absolutely.
What's really interesting, where I see a lot of gray areas, those curtains, rods, and draperies.
Yeah, most of the contracts spell that out, that especially as is, that the curtains, the rods, the draperies all stay. But we've had many instances where we've gone back in for that one last look before closing, and those fancy drapes that match the bedspread in the daughter's room are gone. And the seller says, well, those go with me. They're part of my personal items. No, the contract said drapes, rods, and blinds. So we have to negotiate again. So we're negotiating many times right up to closing.
In fact, speaking of negotiations, everything's negotiable.
Yes.
We've actually got a lot of terms when you're looking at that offer that make one offer appeal better to a seller than the other. So let's take price, for example. and in combination with something else, you list your house for $300,000, and the seller says, "I really like it. The buyer says, I'm gonna pay you $302,000 because I really want this house," and you're like, "Whoop whoop! I just got over asking." But the buyer wants 6 months to close the deal, and they want you to pay all their closing costs. How appealing is that to you if you need to be out in 30 days? Regardless of the price they offered you, you've got a timeline issue. So we've got to negotiate the timeline. What else do you see, Craig, that comes most often in these negotiations?
Well, obviously, the financing terms with cash back for financing, cash back for other closing costs. It's really where we talked about the net sheets earlier. You've got to look at what are you going to get when you walk away from that home. We talked about items that convey fixtures versus personal property. This is a negotiation because many times they may want. I've had people say, "I like this house and all the furniture. I want to buy the whole thing. I'll give you X amount for it, just like it is. You take your clothes and your toothbrush, and I want this." Especially out-of-state people, or then they're buying houses for the empty nest, not empty nesters, but the snowbirds that come down and just want for vacation. They will. They don't want to buy the furniture, and you've done a good job. Well, if it makes sense financially, do it. You can always go buy new furniture. Hey, and you saved a lot of transfer costs.
Yeah, well, if we price it right from the start, we might actually get a multiple offer situation. Great for the seller, stressful for the seller. We now have multiple contracts with different prices, timelines, finance terms, closing costs, personal property. And I highly recommend you need a person that's a professional in negotiating to help you make these terms line up with what that motivation was in the beginning, and make this contract closable. And all of these things are important. So I'm not going to harp on that, but definitely want you to think about everything is negotiable, and it needs to line up with your motivation. But as with anything else, things can go wrong in a sale. They usually do. Oh, have you ever had a low appraisal, Craig?
Many times. In the old days, we used to call up our friendly appraiser and say, "Hey, I need an appraisal for this house, and I need it for $350." And he goes, "Okay." So he'd go out, and magically that house would come back at $350, and everybody was happy, and I'd buy him dinner. Well, we all went through the Great Recession, and I don't care who you are, we all got financially hurt. And that's because of that. Some of those problems of these appraisals were not really accurate or fair. Today, it's a whole different story. Agents can't order appraisals. Only lenders can. And even the lenders have to do it through third-party agencies that then will randomly pick the appraiser. Technically, we're not even supposed to talk to the appraisers. They want to know a true fair value. And with that kind of pressure, appraisers have a tendency to be a little conservative. And as the market keeps going up, it's harder for them to keep coming up with higher and higher valuations. So yeah, we can get them lower. But it just opens a door for basically negotiations. Here we go again.
Yeah, a skilled negotiator.
If it comes in $10,000 less, which I've had them even much higher than that, you got three choices. Either the buyer makes up the $10,000, either the seller drops the price $10,000, or you come up with something in between, and you work out again in the negotiation if it can happen.
Oh, guaranteed, your realtor's got a plan. The one that kind of comical to me, lien search. So this is a municipal lien search. This really doesn't affect title. These are situations that can come up. Didn't happen a couple years ago because they weren't required. But now as a seller, you're required to pay for and perform the municipal lien search in the contract. That's looking for unpaid utilities, code violations, and open or expired permits. A while back, as these things started to come into popularity, I had a buyer buying this beautiful riverfront home, and right before closing, when the lien search came in, we found out there was a code violation. Now, code violations run with the land. This land had been an assisted living facility. $300,000 worth of violations had accumulated on this property, which means at some point in the future, Hillsborough County is going to come knocking on that door, regardless of who the homeowner is at the time, and say, "I want my $2." Like, they want that $300,000. And my buyer was like, "I don't really want any part of that." Like, the sale is falling apart. The seller was able to go downtown, have it argued, reduced, mitigated, paid it off at a much smaller rate. The buyer was like, "Okay, I'll proceed with the sale." That is a complexity that if you're doing this on your own, you may not anticipate. We know to look for it. We know how to mediate. Lien searches are delicate.
Yeah, another thing of pitfalls is these inspections, as we talked earlier too. You know, people are going to have the right to go in and check this house out. Excuse me. And they have general inspections that'll look at all the mechanical type things. You've got sometimes rural houses will even have well inspections, septic inspections. You can have separate roofers come out to do inspections, HVAC inspections. It's involved. Everybody just wants to know they're getting what they're paying for. And then the sellers, a lot of times in good faith, are disclosing what they know, but many times things come up that they don't. And again, this is where negotiations of how to handle these inspections come back.
You know, one time I had a radon inspection reading come back at like 9. Okay, like the EPA says 4 Curie pico units or whatever is the maximum. Needless to say, this buyer was older and could not proceed with that sale based on this inspection finding. Seller had no idea that there was a radon reading coming from their home. They'd never really considered it. So financing, pre-approvals are basically a cursory look into the buyer's credit and financial worthiness. They really have 30, 45, whatever you negotiate, number of days to actually get full loan approval. And quite honestly, here I see the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. You know, realtors show up at closing and the buyer drives up in a brand new Porsche. Well, guess what? You might as well put that pen down because that buyer is not closing. They have completely ruined their debt to income ratio the day before a sale. And you, the seller, has already moved out of the property. So this is where a professional can help you with these complexities.
Definitely high anxiety timing.
Yeah, what about sale of another home?
Sale of another home is always, that's certainly a contingency we talked about, but it's also timing and trying to get the other home sold and get out and then move into the new one. It's just a lot of players involved right now when you get closer to the end. You got the sellers, and you got the buyers, you got title company, you got realtors, both buyer and seller realtors. You got inspectors and appraisers. So
ooh, that's a lot of hands in the cookie jar.
it is, and but many times people just want to make this a perfect transition, and we try to do it as best we can, but sometimes people end up having to get a room at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, there's a lot of professionals pulling all the strings to make this happen for you. So we made it through. We negotiated. It's time to prepare to close. Timing your move is key. We don't want anybody homeless. So back to those timelines. Seller has to be out night before day of. All personal possessions removed and broom swept so the buyer can have their final walkthrough. We're going to work with title. Title is the one that sets all those prorations, like how much of the HOA is my responsibility, or the CDD, or the taxes. They're working those numbers with you, and they'll set up that signing appointment for you and actually help you sign the deed so that you can transfer ownership of the property. But now you got to find the next place to live. Craig, can anybody help them with that?
Well, that's what realtors are designed for. If you get a full service realtor, not only do they help you sell homes, they help you buy homes, but they also help you find rentals, both short and long term, as you need.
Yeah, you know, one of my agents the other day was out on a presentation, and they were like, "Oh, can you help me find a rental?" Sure, that sounds great. Why do you need a rental? Oh, well, I'm selling my home. Okay, why isn't your realtor who's selling your home helping you find your next place to live? Oh, they don't do rentals. Well, goodness, so much for one-stop shopping. I mean, you really want to have a plan for where you're going to go when you sell your home, and the professional you hire should be helping you with all of that transaction. So,
yeah, realtors are professionals just like accountants and attorneys. You like to have an attorney and accountant forever. Well, we like to think that you have your realtor for life.
oh, good point. You made it all the way through. Congratulations.
So one of the things now we'd like to offer you is a free valuation of your home. It's no obligation. We'll come out, and this isn't a Zillow deal. This is one where we actually pull comps and come up with what your home, in your condition, in your neighborhood, would go for. Now, that might be impressive, it might be discouraging, but the reality is if you know what your home's value is, then you have the opportunity to maybe sell and upsize, downsize, move, and relocate or whatever. And this is a service that we offer all the time. So just go to www.eatonrealty.com/value, fill in the form, and one of our field agents will be happy to work with you.
Awesome. Let's see if we got any questions in.
All right, so we do. Thank you very much, guys, for running through that. Got a couple of questions here. The first of which is, what is the best time of year to sell my home if I can plan the sale? So if I can map this out and plan it, what's the best time of year for me to sell?
Craig, you want to take that one?
Yeah, you have the most traffic certainly in Florida, and the family communities we deal with certainly between the school years seems to be when we're all the busiest. But Florida's a little different than up north, and you get 2 feet of snow outside, pretty much they shut down their real estate markets. But that's some of our best winters, and we have our Northerners and Canadians and Europeans coming down. So we sell houses all year long. I've been doing showings on Christmas Eve and New Year's Day.
You know, I would say our biggest peak for listings, or people want to be on the market by 1 March for a summer move. That gives you January and February. You know, you got your Christmas tree or whatever, your holiday things up, and you want to get that all taken down over Christmas. January and February, you want to meet with the realtors, you want to choose the best value broker for you, and you want to go ahead and make those home improvement things are going to be needed in January and February. Get it on the market by spring. Summer comes in, and that is our peak. Those are when we're going to have the bulk of the buyers, the bulk of the closings. And then we have our fringe market. September, October tend to be really good months for us. And then people at the end of December, they want to close on a house before the new year. Florida's a year-round market, but we do have peaks: the spring, the summer, and early fall.
All right, and so we also have a couple of questions about staging. So is a house that is staged, will that sell quicker than a vacant home? And as a follow-up to that, should I pay for someone to stage my home professionally?
That's an excellent question. If you think about from the buyer's perspective, if I'm going to walk into a vacant home and I'm not a visionary person, that buyer's not going to be able to envision where that king bed will go. Rooms actually look smaller in a vacant home, so they might think their king bed and dressers don't fit there. Do you need expensive staging? Not so much. Would a stager tell you need expensive staging? Probably
Absolutely.
so. A couple of key rooms in a large vacant home would be a great idea to speed up the sale, to help those buyers without vision actually see the purpose and use of certain rooms.
You could actually do a lot of that yourself, you know, just hanging some nice towels in the bathroom and put a little potted plants, silk plants in the kitchen. And strategically, if you had a pot with a tree, leave it in a room. Just anything to warm the room up and take the coldness of 4 beige walls.
All right, and one last follow-on question. We were talking about personal property and what stays and what goes, what conveys with the house. I had a question: what if my projector is mounted in the garage? So I assume it's like a home theater projector. If it's mounted in the garage, or really for that matter, a projector that's mounted anywhere, what's the rule with that? Does that
Right.
stay or go?
That is a great question. And in fact, you, the seller, when you set up your listing agreement and we put it in the multiple listing service, can exclude that projector from the sale and the mount itself. I mean, projectors, I don't know how much they cost, but I think they're over $1,000. And that has value. Now, a buyer comes in and they love everything about your house and they want it with the wine fridge and they want it with the projector and the price is right. Maybe you'll include the projector. That's your option, but we're going to exclude it. And grandma's chandelier and the beautiful wine fridge that you intend to take with you, we're going to add comments into the sale that says this does not convey. So when you make your offer, understand that I'm not leaving my projector.
All right. Very good. Well, that'll do it for us. That's all the questions that we had. If you guys think of any more questions, feel free to send us an email, drop us a line at info@eatonrealty.com. We'll be happy to get those answered for you. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.